Hello and welcome back to the Grapple Theory podcast. Thank you for joining us once again. And this week we've got a very special guest joining us. Most people probably know her from her time at the London-based promotion Pro Wrestling Eve, where she's currently the holder of their top belt, a two-time champion, I might add. A few of you probably know who I'm talking about already, as I've given you that hint. We'll be talking to her about Eve, about their upcoming show, where she's facing Emersyn Jayne in an Ironman match. That's going to be absolutely fantastic. What a match that's going to be. We're going to be talking to her about that, about so much more in her career, coming through the ranks of BritWres, and we're going to be talking to her about a few things that you probably wouldn't think of as well, including where she got her name. The answer might surprise you on that one. It definitely surprised me. So it's without further ado that we can welcome Jetta to the podcast. Jetta, thanks so much for joining us today. First of all, talk to me about how 2022 started for you. How's it been?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like picked up. I suppose the thing with it was that there was that little kind of wobble, wasn't there, the back end of last year around COVID, and there was that kind of fear of like, oh, are we going to go back into like full-on lockdowns? And there was the restrictions on crowds and things like that. So yeah, it kind of felt like, oh, is it going to start to sort of slow down? But yeah, the start to the year has been really good, and obviously, you know, with Eve as well, you know, they've really hit the ground running. There's a lot coming up. Obviously the double header in March. And I think that's the thing as well, you know, a lot of there's kind of also, I guess, a little bit of a battle, I suppose, with venues, because, you know, so many groups, bands and whatnot have had to put off tours. So there was kind of that feeling, I think, I'm sure, for a lot of promoters where they might struggle to get hold of venues. But it doesn't seem to have been a problem. So that's good. And I think, you know, for a company like Eve, I suppose a lot of other companies as well that have quite a big sort of on-demand and online presence. Obviously, they do a lot of stuff through membership on YouTube. It's about content, isn't it? So the fact that they've gone a year with little to no content, so that they're obviously wanting to ramp up the show. So yeah, kind of keeps us busy. So yeah, it's been a good start to the year. Sorry, the cat's...
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's not a problem.
There's a cat here.
It's not a problem at all. It's fine. If anything, it like sort of just adds to stuff, which is great. But you mentioned Eve, and obviously we'll get straight into that, because I think when people think Jetta, they automatically probably think Eve as a promotion that you're most associated with. And obviously we'll have you on ahead of that show, the doubleheader in March. So talk to me about that. Obviously, Eve love a good doubleheader, and they do it really well, and they put on so many great shows. And obviously, this one coming up is to do with International Women's Day, and they're doing it all sort of in honour of that, which is fab. Got a few huge stars coming in from the States as well. I mean, first of all, talk to us about how much you're looking forward to that show, because I think day we're recording this, it's just been announced you're facing Emersyn Jayne in an Ironman match, which for the title. Which, I mean, that's going to be a great match. You must be really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, looking forward to it, but also like, oh God. Like, Emersyn's not an easy person to wrestle, like, full stop. And I mean that in a way that, like, she's go. So yeah, I'm gonna have to get my cardio up, that's for sure, because she's a machine. I don't know how she does it, honestly don't. Like, she's a machine. Like, the amount of times I've seen her do, like, she'll do like 3 or 4 matches like on a show, and like most people, they'll do like, if they have to do like 3 or 4 matches, they kind of like try and pace it out, so they're not like going balls to the wall in the first match. Oh no, not Emersyn. Like, every match is like balls to the wall.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. It's a challenge, and I think, you know, anytime you get to do something that's like the first time something's been done in a company, that's that's obviously a cool thing to do. But yeah, it's not going to be easy.
No, for sure. And we'll get
hard for me.
For sure. No, I totally get it. But we'll get onto that, because that surprised me as well. Like, in terms of, it's just surprising to me that this is the first Ironman match that Eve have put on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably something that Dan has probably wanted to do for a while, but it's just kind of finding the right sort of placement for it. Obviously, with me and Emersyn, we're 1-1 at the moment. She beat me in my first title defence, and then I beat her and won the bout back. So it kind of just makes sense that the next match needs to be something extra to step it up a level and prove, you know, who is the better competitor. Because I think that's the thing as well with Emersyn, you know, she can kind of do it all. She's an all-rounder. She's a very hard person to beat and to go toe to toe with. So I don't know, like it's one of them where who kind of has the advantage, I don't know, but obviously the most pinfalls or submissions will win the match. So, and the venue as well, 229 is a great venue. Yeah, I really do love performing there. I think everybody does. It's a really nice venue. So yeah, be a good show. And then, like you say, the imports coming in as well. You know, I don't think any of them have been in the UK before, actually.
Not that I can remember.
It surprises me with someone like Alison Kay, because you know she's obviously been wrestling for so long. But yeah, that's obviously really cool. And the NWA tag team titles being defended, I'm sure that's got to be the first time they've been defended outside of the States.
I would think so. Yeah, I can't imagine another time that they have been. But yeah, obviously, like you say, really, really cool that that's all happening. I mean, I want to ask about this sort of like this feud you've got with Emersyn at the minute, because obviously, you know, it's sort of like a great friends, better rivals sort of thing with you guys. And you obviously, like you said, you lost the title in your first defence. I mean, in terms of how much, I guess, you can go into it with chatting to Dan and the booking and everything, like, I guess, how long term has that story been going? Was it always the plan to have this, you know, she win the title off, you win it back, go to this culmination match? And then also in line with that, like, was it a little disappointing to not be able to defend the title the first time? In terms
no, I don't think so. Like, I think that, I mean, that was always the plan. There was an issue with the venue in October, and we couldn't do that show, but that was the plan. It was meant to be October, November, December. So I think December we were at 229. It was supposed to be that show that would be the Iron Woman match, but then because of the show that got cancelled, it had to be sort of dragged out a little bit more. And it just made sense then to try and build it towards this show, the 229 show in March. So yeah, that was always the plan. And no, like, I think, you know, the thing is with Dan that I think that, and the thing with Eve that I love so much, and the reason why, like, it's always my favourite place to wrestle is we're given freedom, we're given the chance to develop our characters and kind of do the things that we want to do and pitch in ideas and things like that. And Dan explains, you know, the story arc that we're on and asks us for input. What do we think of this and what do we think of that? And I think that, you know, that's what I really like, because at the end of the day, like, you want to be able to kind of have that creative freedom to be able to do what you want. I mean, that's why we do it, you know. You don't want to have to, you know, be sort of tied down to something or not really know why something is going a certain way. But no, I think it makes sense, and I think it makes sense for the characters as well. My character is a bit of an underdog. Emersyn is kind of like this, you know, undefeatable, you know, like all-round polished wrestler. It does make sense.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well, I think that you've always got with any kind of baby faces, they're a massive baby face in the chase, but then once they get to the end goal, you get obviously that big pop of like, they've done it, they've won the title, and then it's kind of a bit like, what next? So that's the bit where it's quite difficult to kind of keep the crowd still behind you. And I think being quite a big underdog character, that story just made sense for her to beat me. And again, as well, it's that like aspect of surprise, because although Emersyn is as good as she is, people probably didn't expect me to lose. So again, it's that kind of like keeping the audience on their toes. So.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And take me back to Wrestle Queendom, because obviously it was a huge show, first Eve show back after the pandemic, real excitement behind it. And you win the Rumble, win the title. For someone who'd been a part of Eve for so long at that point, how nice was it personally to finally get your hands on that top belt? And how much of a statement of sort of recognition was that for you from Dan and the team of the work you'd put in there?
I think, it was. It was a really great moment. It was nerve-wracking because obviously obviously or obviously not. Well, I don't know if you know, but that was my first show back. So you've got kind of those nerves of like, oh God, it's like the first show back. You know, I haven't wrestled in X amount of time. And obviously you train and stuff like that, but it's not the same as like being in front of the crowd. So there was that kind of like nervousness around it. But yeah, no, it was a really lovely moment. And I think, you know, anyone who says that like, well, it's, you know, it's all fixed and belts don't matter and stuff like that, it does, because like you say, it's that recognition and it's that kind of like, you know, we trust you to hold this title and we think you're worthy of like representing the company as the champion. So it does it does mean something. And yeah, it was a great moment. And I think again, there's always that thing in the back of my mind because predominantly throughout my career, I've always been a heel, and it's kind of like, not that it's, I guess it depends on the person. Personally, for me, I find it so much easier to be a heel. And when you know that you're going to win a title, you've always got it in the back of your mind, like, oh, are they going to cheer? I hope they cheer. And then I think when you've also got the whole bit that adds into it where you've not actually been in front of an audience for like however long it was, like 18 months or whatever, then you're like, well, they cheered me before, so it should be fine, but they haven't seen me for like over a year, so are they going to care? Are they going to cheer? So there's that kind of like, that's more the nervousness, I think, than the wrestling, that you get the reaction that you're supposed to be getting. So I sort of did joke before that, like, well, if they boo me, I'll just turn heel. This is what it is. Sorry, Dan.
Exactly. That's the thing, isn't it? You always hear it like wrestling. The worst thing is the silence. If you got cheers or boos, that's what you can work with. But
yeah. So there's that more than anything, because you feel it's a little bit untested. Because obviously the Eve crowd, they follow it, so they know who people are, and you don't think that you're going to go out silence, but you always get that kind of like, are they actually going to care? Are they going to cheer? Oh. So there was that nervousness, but that was an amazing moment. Probably one of the top moments that I've had in my career. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you mentioned obviously the fact that it was your first show back after the pandemic. And I remember we spoke to Debbie Cattell for the podcast about Wrestle Queendom, and this was just after it had happened. And she was talking about how, I think she said she'd like spoken to you before in the build-up, being like, you both had like a couple of offers to wrestle other shows, but we're like, oh no, we'll leave it. We'll wait till this because this is the big one. And you mentioned that apprehension about coming back and all that sort of thing. Is there sort of that double-edged sword in it, in terms of, I could take this other booking and maybe get a couple of reps in and get back in the ring and ready to go before it? How is that in terms of deciding when to come back, especially after something that's like no one could have foreseen coming?
Yeah, I mean, I did have an opportunity to do a show that would have been like a closed door show, and it wouldn't have been like recorded or anything, and I would have done that if I could, but I couldn't because of work commitments. So in that respect, that would have been a good thing to do, because like you say, you've got that rep in there, and you're like, right, I've been in front of a crowd, it's okay, sort of thing. But it is because it is a double-edged sword, because in one respect you've kind of like, to me, like I've worked with Eve for so long, like I've been there since the first show, and that to me is my home. So if I'm gonna come back, I kind of want to do it there. Again, like not to say that other places aren't, because there's some phenomenal promotions out there that I do love working for, but I've got such a close relationship with Dan that it feels like, to me, that feels like a real safe place, like where I can. I'm sure I probably could do this with the promoters, but I'm not as close to them as I am Stan. I can go up to Stan and be like, I'm really shitting myself, I'm really scared, like, and he'll be like, he'll be calming me down, sort of thing. So I think it is a double-edged sword, but then you kind of do want to, like, you also want to come back with a bit of a statement. So I think for me in particular, that was quite a big statement. My first show back, I've won the Eve title, so. Yeah, and also, I did have it in the back of my head, and I was kind of saying to a few of the girls backstage, like, you've got to wrestle a match, I'm in a Rumble. Not that, Rumbles are not easy, but, it's slightly less pressure than...
Yeah, until like the final
15-minute like match or whatever. So, that was kind of... And when Dan told me that was the idea for it as well, I was like, okay, that's not as scary. I feel like that's easing myself in a little bit as well. So
yeah, and obviously aside from winning the title, just personally for you, what was it like stepping through that curtain, coming out, hearing the crowd, singing "Nobody Does It Better"? What was that moment like for you? What were the emotions that you were feeling at that time?
Yeah, and again, like I was standing at the curtain, and I was sort of saying to, I can't remember exactly who was there. I know Charlie was there. Whoever else was there, I was like, oh my god, like, I hope they like give a shit when I come out. And like as soon as my music hit, they started singing, and like Charlie just looked at me and was like, told ya, they would still like react to you. And I think then once you feel that, then you're kind of like, the nerves don't go away, but you're kind of a bit like, right, okay, so they're excited that I'm about to make my entrance, so that's a good sign. And they're still singing along, so that's a good sign. yeah, like that feeling is it's lovely anyway when you hear it, you know, every month. But when you haven't wrestled for like 18 months, it was even nicer, because it just, you know, just reminds you of how much you miss, like having that, and that, you know, that interaction with that crowd, the crowd, and the connection with the crowd. You know, I think, you know, I mean, I don't know, I can't speak on behalf of everyone else, but that's the thing that I love about wrestling. It's that connection that you can make with the audience, whether that's they want to see you lose or they want to see you win, they're behind you or they're laughing at you or whatever. Like, that's what I thrive off. I love that connection, and, you know, entertaining them however it is that you are entertaining them. Yeah, so to hear that was great.
Yeah, and you mentioned Charlie there. Obviously, we've got to talk about her, because again, a huge comeback at Wrestle Kingdom. That must have been sort of that extra level of emotion for you, having just won the title, and then to see Charlie make a big comeback, and for her to get such a great reaction as well. That must have been really lovely.
Yeah, and again, it's like, it's nerve-wracking as well, because then I'm nervous for her as well, because you know, she's coming back from quite a serious injury that she was told, you know, she would never wrestle again. So yeah, it's kind of like I had that high of, like, you know, winning the title. I come back, everyone, you know, just I'm literally like at the entrance, everyone okay? Yeah, and then I just kind of like put the belt on the floor and then just like took my head down and was watching Charlie's match, because, you know, I'd wanted to obviously watch that. So yeah, I'm just covered in sweat and just sat there. Probably see my head poking through the bottom of the thingy watching it, but yeah. So I wanted to hear her entrance and see her match, and obviously make sure that she was okay. So yeah, it was an absolute, like, the day itself was just a roller coaster of emotions, because again as well, like, you know, you're at the show and you've been away for so long, and you're seeing everybody for the first time in a long time for a lot of people, because, you know, we're all over the country. Obviously those of us that are kind of Midlands based, like myself, Charlie and Alex were, you know, obviously Charlie and Alex are best friends, so we were training together anyway to prepare, so we would see each other all the time. Emersyn came down one time and stayed with us for the weekend, and we went and trained with her as well. So we'd seen some of the girls, but like a lot of the girls we hadn't seen for so long. So, and it was just nice to be in that environment again. I think we all just missed, like, being around each other in that environment again, and it's such an encouraging, really nice, like, locker room. Like, we're all watching the show backstage. We're all gathered around a monitor watching the show backstage, and, you know, cheering each other on and stuff. So yeah, I think we all missed that. So yeah, it was a roller coaster of emotions that day. So yeah, it was quite exhausting once we kind of got home.
Finally decompress. Yeah. For sure. No, I can imagine. And as someone, like, in terms of Charlie's comeback, obviously I appreciate that it was for sort of different reasons, but as someone who's sort of retired a couple of times yourself and come back, were you able to sort of, I guess, offer any sort of, like, advice or, like, sort of calm any nerves in terms of, like, oh, it'll be fine, that sort of thing, you know, after getting back into the ring after so long?
Yeah, I think you know, it's difficult when you're coming back from an injury. I've had a couple of injuries, and it is hard, because I think once you've had one serious injury, it does kind of mess with your head, because not that you think that you're invincible before, you sort of know that, you know, anything could happen, but it's not until it actually happens to you that you're like, wow, like, you know. And especially with Charlie and her ankle, it's one, I broke my arm and I broke my wrist, which is not great, but you can still walk around.
Yeah.
Whereas when it's your ankle, you're kind of like, there's not a lot you can really do for yourself. You can't just, like, go out for a drive or go for a walk or whatever. So it is tough. And again, with Charlie and her style, that's another thing that will, you know, will make you struggle, because people expect her to do mad shit. Like, she's kind of like, can I do mad shit? I don't know. But I think, you know, the advice that I gave to her and I give to anybody is, like, if you do something and you injure yourself, once you are kind of cleared to start training, you just have to, you can't second guess it. So, like, when I broke my arm, the first thing I did when I could train was I just walked into the training centre and I just did a front bump, because I was like, if I get that out of the way, then I'm fine. So I think for Charlie, it was just kind of like getting in the ring and just sort of going through the things that she used to do before. And then once you do a couple of things, like, your confidence builds, and then you get back into the rhythm of it, and it's muscle memory, isn't it? So
Yeah.
It's a lot of it's up here. So.
Yeah, and we talk about comebacks as well, because you mentioned Alex as well there, and Alex came back after 4.5 years, and I remember at the time like thinking you wouldn't know she'd been gone a month, like she just went back into it so effortlessly. I mean, talk to me about her, and again like her comeback and watching her have that match, and because it just seemed crazy from a fan's point of view that she'd been gone so long, and yet you wouldn't know it at all.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Alex is fantastic, and when she got injured, that was awful for her, but obviously awful for the scene as well, because she's another person that I think, like a lot like Charlie, people sort of think she sort of came out of nowhere, like 3 or 4 years ago, or however long it was, but she's been wrestling for a really long time. So, when she started to break out, people were kind of like, whoa, like, where's this girl sort of come from? She's been doing it for a long time, and she knows her stuff. Again, I think again that first Eve show back was for us was just like really an emotional roller coaster, because you had Alex coming back, you had Charlie coming back, you had me winning the title. So I think for us as a three, and like I say, Charlie and Alex have been best friends for a long time. So obviously, I'm really close with Alex now as well. We all kind of trained together to get ready for the first show back, and it was all of our first show back. So and to see her go out there and just take to it again like a duck to water, it was kind of like I just sort of because I'd been training with her, so I knew like that she was going to go out there and kill it. Like I just knew, and I was just excited to watch everyone else see it. And again, I think the stuff that she's done since she's come back, again, it's great, but I'm not surprised, because I know how good she is. And I think she's only just now starting to hit her stride, so it's going to be really interesting to see what she does from here. And I guess although it's it's crap that she had to have that surgery and she was out for the long time that she was out for, but I suppose what that then brings now is a lot of first time matchups, because a lot of people weren't around. So like her and Charlie Evans had an amazing match. I'm sure they'll probably wrestle at some point again as well. So for her, I think the sky's the limit.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, totally. And talk to me about I want to ask you about you and Charlie and your match at Wrestle Carnival. Because well, fantastic match first of all, and it must have been nice to again, like after so long out with the pandemic, after Charlie's big comeback as well, to be able to have that one-on-one match as well. And I remember speaking to Gary Ward about it, and he said that you guys were the ones that sort of like pushed for it. You guys sort of wanted the match.
Yeah, because I think again, as much as like Charlie coming back, like she'd been training and whatever, I think when she first came back, she was still sort of a little bit like wanted to be careful what she did, and like wrestling people that she was familiar with, so that she felt comfortable. And yeah, it's just, I mean, we've wrestled before, we've wrestled quite a lot before, so yeah, I think we were just like, can we wrestle, because that would have been, well, it was my first singles match, and then obviously for her it's just kind of like still sort of finding her feet, but it was a lot of fun. And I think the thing is with Charlie that's been really good for me personally is that she pushes me to do stuff, or to come out of my own comfort zone, which I need, like, because I think sometimes I'm my biggest enemy, because I get in my own head and think, oh, I can't really do that, I'm not good enough to do that, or I don't really want to try that, or whereas she's like, no, you can do it, and she'll kind of push me to try things and to push myself. So in that respect, yeah, it was, that was really fun. Yeah, and I think any time we get to do stuff together is fun. So yeah. I know each other's moveset really well. So.
Yeah, handier.
Well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you remember in terms of about that match, like when it was announced, there was like this weird, like, I wouldn't call it quite a backlash, but there was like a couple of negative comments written on it, being like sort of like partners wrestling sort of thing. That was a bit confusing. Like, I don't know where that came from, but like, because you mentioned having wrestled before, and like that's what I thought. It was like, but I hadn't seen that sort of thing before come out.
I think it's probably because it's like when we've wrestled before, we've just sort of like we've been like wrestler A, wrestler B. We've not really like our relationship wasn't like brought into the match. But I think when you're wrestling somewhere like Wrestle Carnival, like the crowd is a little bit 50-50. Like you're going to have your kind of like casual fans and whatever, but you're also going to have fans that are aware of like us to an extent as people and what our personal circumstances are. So just it's like, why would you not like acknowledge it? And I just think like, I mean, again, you get into that whole conversation of like, oh, you know, this. I think this was the backlash, wasn't it? That it was promoting domestic violence, it was sexist in the way that it was billed, and it's like it's a bit of fun. Like there are worse things in the world to be stressing out about, and that's not one of them. And you know, probably shouldn't say, but you know, I'm 34 years of age. If I wasn't comfortable doing something, I would say no. I wouldn't do it, and neither would Charlie. Like, I'm a grown up. I don't. If I'm okay with it and I'm retweeting it, then like it's silly. And you know, people can have their opinions and whatever, but I don't really think it promotes domestic. Like saying it promotes domestic violence is really silly. It's a pretend fight. Let's have things in perspective. It's just it was a bit of a laugh and a joke for people that would see it online. So
yeah, I was going to say, because it's the sort of thing, isn't it? It's like if you saw two like actors like doing something similar, like having some sort of fight on like TV, you wouldn't be like, oh, like you probably wouldn't have the same reaction.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things. I think sometimes people are just looking for things to be outraged by. I did suggest though that based on that we should make it a good housekeeping match, but that was turned down. So.
That would have been great. What would that entail for you? What in your mind would that be like in terms of stipulation?
Was it China and was it Bob Holly? I don't know if it did that much.
Yes, it was. Sorry, no, I blanked on that. Yeah.
It was Jeff Jarrett, wasn't it? I don't know, ironing boards, stuff like that.
That would have been great. Yeah. Oh, Gary, why didn't you do that? I'm so disappointed. That would have been great. Something else I wanted to get into in terms of like, I guess in terms of just more like negative bits, obviously, but we'll try and put a positive spin on it. And obviously, it's the fact that we've spoken to a few wrestlers about this, and the fact that obviously the pandemic wasn't the only thing to affect wrestling and BritWres in particular over the last couple of years. As someone again who's been around wrestling so long and been in so many different locker rooms and stuff, do you see stuff having changed than maybe pre-pandemic in terms of backstage locker room or with fans?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a bit more of a kind of like focus on that type of side of things. What with a lot of the policies and procedures that a lot of companies now have in place, and I think you know. Wrestling's always been a bit of a Wild West. It's always going to be a little bit Wild West because it sits in that, you know, I don't know how to, cracking the pavement between real sport and acting sort of thing. So, you know, I know that there have always been people that have tried to get it in a place where there's some kind of governing body. Real wrestling, like amateur wrestling, has always sort of been like no, like their governing body have been like no, it's not, it doesn't sit under this because you know it's entertainment, whatever. And I think like in terms of like acting circles, it's kind of then seen as something separate as well. So it's always going to be within that grey area. But you know the work that's being done by the parliamentary party group and also you know Equity have done a lot of stuff and they still have quite a strong presence at a lot of shows, which is great. But I think ultimately, you know, the big change is that, you know, that's never going to happen in a day. It's never going to happen in a few months, and it won't happen in a few years. And I think anybody who thinks that they'll, you know, that they were going to come back to wrestling after speaking out and it would be completely transformed with this set of rules and regulations, like that's never going to happen. Quickly anyway, it's always going to take a lot of time to do that purely because it's not defined. But I think the difference is that people are more inclined to talk about things and to speak out when they think that something's not right. And I think, you know, that sort of barrier has been broken. I think a lot of the time, you know, wrestlers would sort of be aware of stuff, but we wouldn't really speak about things, whereas now I think we're kind of a lot more open. And I think people are just not willing to accept it. I think people are just not willing to accept certain types of behaviour anymore, which is good. There's always that kind of problem that, you know, people obviously want to get on in wrestling, and they want to wrestle on shows. So I think a lot of the sort of, a lot of people would hold over people's heads things like bookings or, you know, sway that they had with certain promotions and whatever. But, you know, I think as long as people continue to speak up and speak out and not accept certain behaviours, that's the way it's going to move forward. And then, you know, the stuff that the parliamentary group and equity are doing in the background, that will come with time. But for now, I think people just need to continue to not accept certain behaviours.
Yeah, I think that's what's important, isn't it? For people to, you know, actually take that stand and be like, no, this isn't going to be tolerated. Yeah.
And there's always going to be certain wrestlers that were named that are going to try and weasel their way back into wrestling. It is what it is. You're never going to completely get rid of that. All that you can do is call that out. And a lot of the time it does get called out. People will pretend they didn't know. They probably did. They're probably just hoping that they wouldn't get backlash, but then they'll take those people off the shows and we'll move on. And I think that's really, realistically, that's the only thing you can do at the moment. But the fact that there is that focus on it, and there is that parliamentary group and like I say, equity is a good step forward.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. And moving back to Eve, one thing I wanted to ask you about was about Signature Brew, because obviously Eve was so synonymous for so long with the Res Gal, and that was home, and it was fantastic. The atmosphere was great, and I just want to ask someone as someone who's been at Eve for so long, you know, how you've, you know, you guys sort of backstage been warming to Signature Brew, and is that starting to feel more like a new home now?
Yeah, I think nowhere will ever replace the Res Gal. I think everyone that wrestled at the Res Gal will say the same thing. They hated it and they loved it. But it had that kind of like, it suited the ethos of Eve. It was kind of like, it was underground, it was a bit grimy, it was a bit grungy, and it just sort of like, it suited the style of show. And I think Signature does suit the style as well, because it's, you know, it's not like a regular sort of sports hall. Obviously you've got the big, like, whatever you call them, beer things, the side and stuff like that. So it kind of looks a bit different. You've still got that aspect of the crowd being like quite close to the ring and like standing around, which I think is also like quite a big sort of thing. And I think that's the thing as well, isn't it? It's with Res Gal, it was the same sort of thing. That's where the monthly shows are, and then every like few months there'll be a big show somewhere else, and it builds to that. But I think Signature is definitely starting to feel like our home for sure. We all do really, really like it there. Again, nothing will replace the Res Gal, but you know, the thing that made the Res Gal was the moments that happened at the Res Gal. I know prime moments will happen at Signature, and it will become, you know, it'll become home. So
that's good to hear as a fan as well. That's good to hear that it's being warmed to, and the fact that people are enjoying it, which is really nice. Something else I wanted to bring up was I listened to a couple of months back when you were on Cultaholics, Deslive and Graps. Shout out to them as well. They do a great job. Great podcast as well.
Yeah, great job.
Yeah. And you mentioned there, and I think they mentioned about the fact that obviously you I guess it was more about the people sort of you've been on shows with in your time wrestling, people like Becky Lynch and stuff like that. And looking back on it, you've been on shows with so many people who are like now signed now, like quite big names in wrestling, like moving forward, like working with them. Is there a moment like where you sort of know a certain person is going to hit it big, where you're like, yeah, they're going to be huge?
Yeah, I think you kind of, when you meet certain people and you sort of see like that person has it, whatever it is, they have it. There are people that you do see that have that. I mean, Becky Lynch is a perfect example. Yeah, you do. You meet certain people and you do think, yeah, like if they get the opportunity, they could really set the world on fire. Yeah, definitely.
And similarly, then in that respect, I guess are there people out there like at the minute or like in the past that you've worked with and you've thought, oh, they've definitely got it, and then been surprised, say, that they hadn't been signed at that moment or at that time or at all?
Yeah, I think sometimes, you know, it's one of them, isn't it? It's the entertainment business. So you can have all the right tools, and you could have it, but if your it is not what they're looking for at that time, then, you know, it's like anything, you know, it's like auditioning for a film. You could be perfect for a role, but if you're if you have brown hair but they're looking for a lead that's blonde, and then a blonde walks in, well, you know, the blonde might have been not as great as you, but you know, that's the look they're looking for. So that's the person they're going to go with. I think there's a lot of that as well, and that's the thing I think that like is difficult about wrestling, because sometimes, you know, it's not fair. You can do everything right, you can do everything that's asked of you, and you can put in as many hours that you want, but if you're not in the right place at the right time and what that person is looking for, then you're not the person that's going to get selected. And even if you do get selected, maybe you're not given what you need to fully realise your potential. A lot of it is kind of circumstances and being in the right time at the right place, isn't it, really? So yeah, that's something that I think, you know, is difficult to kind of come to terms with. But I think once you kind of realise that and continue to do the best that you can do all the time and be the best version of yourself, then, you know, that's all you can do, really.
No, sure. We're going to move on to another feature we've got now, a newer feature called What's in a Name. And it's quite simple. Like, I just want to know sort of the backstory behind Jetta, where it came from, and also, like, for anyone watching, you know, in your mind, what does it take to be the Princess Diana of pro wrestling?
So the story of the name is very boring and not great, because it's not well thought out at all. So I was wrestling on my first show and I didn't have a name. And one of the other trainees was like, there was two girls and neither of us had a name. And one of the trainees was like, oh, why don't you use the name Jetta? And we were like, well, what's that? And they were like, oh, it's a car in the Fast and Furious. Literally, he's just read it off the back of his car in the Fast and Furious. So he flipped a coin for it, and I won the coin flip, and that's how I got a name, and I've just never changed. There's no like grand story around it. And I think the thing with it as well is like, I don't know if I'd ever change it, because I think I mean, you could, and I still think people would know it was me. A lot of people do change their names, but like, one, I can't pronounce it. So, you know, because I roll my T's. So anytime I wrestle outside of the UK, like, and I only really realised this after a few years, like, people would come to me like, oh, what's your wrestling name? Like the ring announcer or whatever. I'd be like, Jetta, and they'd be like, I'd be like, Jetta, and then I'd be like, Jetta, and then I realised, like, yeah, they don't understand me because I can't actually, like, I have to think about, like, pronouncing it properly. So maybe not the best name. And what it takes to be Princess Diana of professional wrestling, you have to be a woman of the people.
Simple, yeah, absolutely. I believe that's what you are, absolutely, for sure. I mean, I've got to ask, purely based on this, like, based on that name, are you a fan of the Fast and Furious franchise, or is it like...
Yeah, actually, I do quite like them, actually. They're like those sort of, like, awful films, aren't they, that you're just like, this is ridiculous, but it's entertaining. Like, what was it on one of them where they had, like, a car come out of a plane or something?
Yeah. Just as you do, normal stuff, normal everyday stuff.
Yeah, I do quite like them. Yeah, I don't think I'd watched it at the time this lad gave me the name, but yeah, I do quite like.
But then you sort of have to watch it out of the principle. You've got to be like, right, let's see where.
Stop where the car was. Like, which one is it?
Brilliant. Well, we're going to move on to our final feature, which is it's called Anatomy of a Pro Wrestler, and this is about yourself. This isn't about Jetta. This is about you personally. So sort of in line with what I asked about Fast and Furious, we're going to learn just a little bit more about you.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and you just let me know what comes to mind.
Okay.
So the first one is my favourite pre-show meal.
My favourite pre-show meal? A Nando's.
Nice. Pre-show?
Yeah.
Really?
Whatever.
That's fair enough. We get a lot of people say that post-show.
You know what? This is another thing that I miss about the Res Gal, because there's a Nando's around the corner. And what I used to do was we'd go to the Nando's and I'd get a wrap and I'd eat half the wrap and then I'd eat the other half after.
Nice.
Well, I can't do that now. But Alexis Falcon delivered a Wagamama's to Signature, and I'm going to do that, because the last few times me and Charlie have took like boring, like healthy microwave meals and just used the microwave at Signature. But actually, I think every single time I see Alexa's with Wagamama's, I'm jealous. So I think I'm going to get a Wagamama's next time. So it was Nando's. It's probably now going to be Wagamama's.
Yeah, it's like that moment almost.
I don't really eat like a big meal before because I don't really feel hungry. But Rain once gave me a tip to eat a banana 20 minutes before you wrestle.
Okay.
Slow release. So I do that. I don't know how real it is, but I started to do that because she told me to. So.
I think that's real. I think that makes sense because you see, like in tennis and stuff, when they have their breaks, you get like they have like a bite of banana or something, and then go back to it. That sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
But the Alexis thing,
and a monster.
Yeah. Nice. Well, the Alexis thing, that reminds me, like, that gives me, like, almost like school throwbacks where you bring in your lunch, but someone else has got a better lunch, and you're like, no, I want that.
It's like, you go home and moan to your mum.
Yeah. Well, you sort of picked up on it there because the next one following that is my favourite post-show pig out.
Oh, yeah, okay. I could be here all day. Normally you'll end up stopping for a McDonald's, but not really a massive fan, to be honest.
Right.
I'll have a chicken wrap because I feel like that's like healthy. It's not, but I'll have a chicken wrap. Other than that, there'll always be some form of cakes backstage. Nina Samuels is a great baker, and she always brings stuff to Eve. So
nice.
There'll always be something there from Nina. So that'll be some kind of like brownie or blondie or cookie or something. Yeah, it's going to be something sweet like that. Also, I always moan to the girls that whenever we do like a 2-show weekender in Eve, I like to go to what's it called? Mild Dutch pancakes. I love pancakes.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to go in March, but so far everyone's saying no because there's a show on a Saturday and I don't want to eat pancakes in the morning. So.
Oh, that's a letdown. What do you go for pancake topping wise?
Well, I try not to be such a pig because whenever I go crazy, I end up not actually eating it because it's too much.
Sure.
So I'll try to just go with Nutella, a banana, and whipped cream. But I did have these pancakes at this little place that's like on the way back from Norwich, which was Nutella peanut butter, which sounds a bit like, but I do love peanut butter. And banana, and they were so good. So that would be my go-to.
No, that sounds good. No, Nutella peanut butter works because you get like Reese's, don't you? And that's peanut butter and then chocolate.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Nice, yeah, that sounds really good. I want pancakes now.
Yeah.
I might make some. For lunch. We'll see. The next one is the song that gets me the most hyped.
Ooh, I'm not really a hyped person. Probably a bit of a problem, isn't it? Yeah, I sometimes do see people backstage with headphones on getting hyped up to music, and I'm like, I wish I could be like a badass person like that who's like, getting really hyped up. But I suppose my entrance music hypes me up because, like, now if I ever hear that, not that you ever really normally hear that song anywhere, but you relate it to wrestling, so you get that kind of like feeling. So I'd say my entrance music hypes me up, and when people sing along to it, that hypes me up.
Nice, no, for sure. Good shout. And the next one is my favourite band of all time. It doesn't have to be a band; it can be like a solo singer. My favourite music artist of all time, essentially.
I'd say my favourite band of all time is probably Oasis. My favorite. This is completely the opposite way, but my favorite singer of all time is Celine Dion. I love Celine Dion.
Those are very different genres of music.
Yeah. But got to have a bit of variety in life, haven't you? So.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I remember again. We mentioned the Cultaholic one. I think you mentioned Oasis on their one as well.
Yeah, that's my favorite band because I think like I've liked them since I was like probably like 10, and I can still like. I still listen to them like this is the first time I've listened to them, sort of thing. So
sure.
Yeah.
What do you think of like each of their solo works? No, neither.
No, a little bit better. The first 2 albums, good. Liam, no. And then after the first 2 albums, Finale, it became a bit dad rock for me. So
sure.
Yeah.
not your sort of thing.
No.
That's fair enough. I mean, entertainment wise, we talked about Fast and Furious. But this one is the movie that I'd show the locker room.
The movie that I'd show the locker room.
Yeah. Essentially, you're walking into the locker room, say at Eve, and like I don't know, everyone's there for some reason an hour and a half before the show, and you're like, right, we're all watching this film because this is the best film.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got to pick something upbeat. Then you don't want anything too depressing. So you probably don't want to show them The Wrestler because that's going to bring the mood down, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a wrestling, you've got to say something like "Ready to Rumble," haven't you?
Yeah.
That's fun.
That'd be a great one.
Yeah. I think that's a good one.
That's a really like deep cut as a film as well, in terms of like that's so like out there. Like it's such...
I think that would be one of those ones though that like not everyone will have watched it, and it's funny. You know, there's going to be wrestlers on it that there's DDP. Like there's going to be wrestlers like, so I think that one would be a good one.
Nice. Yeah. The next one on the list is my favorite way to relax.
I do love a good spa. That's probably a good way to relax. I love a good nap in a good spa, actually, which is probably a bit of a waste, but yeah, I do like a good nap in a spa. And probably just like chilling out at home, really, with a film, some like junk food, the cat. Yeah.
What do you go for? What are classic like TV/movie watching snacks?
Reese's Pieces, Krispy Kreme.
Nice.
Again, I could just sit here and just like list Lindt chocolate.
Oh, Lindt are like elite. That's like top level chocolate.
Yeah, that's like top level. I like the blue bar. It's got like the white, like the
right.
White
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, pancakes again. I like, you know, you can get those like dessert shops. Like I like ordering like cookie dough, white chocolate cookie dough is my go-to.
Nice.
Yeah. All the worst things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what you got to do, don't you? If you're having like a movie night or something, you're not going to have like healthy stuff.
No, that's the point. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to go all out. That's the point of it. Yeah.
Definitely.
The next one is going to be a bit of a throwback here because it's my first job.
My first job. My first, I had a paper round, I don't know if that counts.
No, yeah, that counts. Yeah.
But like my first like proper job, I worked in the menswear department in Next, and it was horrible. I hated it. It was awful. You had to like line the trousers up perfectly, and someone would come along and move one, and then you had to line them all up again. People would ask you for shoes. Like I was probably like 17, and like you know, people would come up to you, like blokes would like in their 50s would be like, "What do you think of this shirt?" I don't know. I'm 17. Yeah. And I remember one day I worked like, you know, the big Boxing Day sales.
Oh right, yeah. Oh, that's got to be torturous. Yeah.
Horrible. And my actual job for the day was holding a sign that said "Queue here," and I was just like, why is there not like a block for them to put this in? Like, why are they paying me to like? Probably I was cheaper than the block, but I'm just like standing there like that was that was my first job.
So as someone, because I worked in retail for a little bit, but not as long as like some other people have had on it, maybe like a year or something. I didn't work in retail long, but like as someone again who's worked in retail, like you mentioned the sign thing. Is that an easier job, or is it easier when you're busier? Like which one is like more annoying to have? Because I imagine it's got to be tough just standing there.
I don't know, like when you're busy, obviously the time goes faster, but it's like it can get quite stressful if you've got like loads of people that were like that want your like, can you go get these shoes or whatever, you know. And then when it's quiet, it's boring. But if you've got people that you work with that you like, then if it's quiet, it's all right because you can just have a bit of a chat, can't you? But yeah, I salute anyone that works in retail because it's horrible.
Absolutely. How long were you there for?
Not 2 months. Not long.
No. It's a tough environment to be in.
Yeah, I was like, no.
Yeah,
my next job was a call centre, and that was awful as well, but at least I was sat down.
Yeah, exactly. Not on your feet all day.
Yeah.
Brilliant. The next one is my greatest fear.
Oh, greatest fear. Oh, God, get quite deep on this one, didn't you? I think probably like anyone's greatest fear. Like my greatest fear would be, you know, for something horrible to happen to any of my family and friends, which is a bit depressing, but that would be my greatest fear.
Understandable. Yeah, understandable. Yeah. No, fair enough. Next one is a couple of wrestling ones. The next one's my favourite wrestling match ever. It can be one you've been in or one you've watched, or both. One of each.
My favourite wrestling match ever, TLC 1.
Yeah.
You can watch that a million times over. It's got everyone in it that I love. So yeah.
Yeah, cracking match, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd pick one over two.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something.
The one with the spear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that does sell it. That does sort of push it over the top, doesn't it? As like
yeah, and I like all the run-ins, like all the run-ins, like yeah.
Yeah, nice. No, good choice. Good choice. The next one is obviously the obligatory My Dream Match.
Oh, dream match. God, I've been so lucky because I've wrestled so many amazing people. Oh God, I don't know. There's a lot of people on the scene at the moment that I would love to wrestle. That I've either have wrestled or haven't wrestled for a long time. I wrestled Alexis Falcon at Eve, and that was a lot of fun. I'd like to do that again. I've never wrestled Lizzie. I'd love to wrestle her. I was meant to wrestle Rio at Wrestle Carnival. I'm hoping that gets rescheduled. We have wrestled before, but I'd love to wrestle her again. I want to do a proper tag team thing with Charlie. I've never wrestled Alex Windsor. I could go on and on and on. There's a lot of people as well in the States that I'd like to wrestle. I'd like to wrestle Serena again. I wrestled her years and years ago. Thunder Rosa, I'd love to wrestle. There's a lot of people I'd like to wrestle. I couldn't just
pick one. No, yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, going off on a tangent again, there you mentioned America. Obviously, you've been out there before, but is that something maybe in terms of post? Well, it is post-pandemic now, but once things have calmed down a bit, stuff like that, is going back out to America something you'd want to do, or?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to do that because again, there's a lot of people out there now that I've not had the chance to wrestle. So, and vice versa. Now that things are opening up, hopefully, some more people can come over here. I know that Dan obviously has a few imports coming over for March, but he's already announced that he's starting to do matches for the She One brackets. There's always a couple of wild cards in that. There's always a couple of people from other parts of the world in She One. So I guess we'll wait and see who ends up coming over. But Mercedes Martinez as well. I've never wrestled her, so I'd love to wrestle her.
That'd be a great match.
We just literally go on and on and on.
No, that would be a great match though. Yeah, for sure. All the ones you mentioned there, Dan, anyone listening to this, book those because you want to see those matches.
I was really happy to get to wrestle Alexis, and I was really excited to wrestle Rio. I've done a few bits with Chantal as well, and I'd like to have a proper match with her. There's so many people I'd love to wrestle. Yeah,
and I mean, again, tangent-wise, getting back to that, because I mean, talk to me about this sort of this new breed of BritWres coming through in terms of in terms of so many coming through, so many, especially like you say, have been on Eve recently. For anyone who watches that, like Chantel or like Lizzie or like Alexis or like Lucia Lee and people like that. I mean, it seems like there's a real strong batch of talent coming through at the minute.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing as well. Everyone this is the thing that kind of makes me laugh because people will say, oh, all of these people are signed now. There's no one left on the scene. This wrestling has always worked this way. Yeah. People come, people go. They open up spots. New people jump into them. They grow into those spots. Where do people think Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate came from?
Yeah.
At one point, they were on progress shows or whatever, and people didn't know who they were, and then they built themselves a reputation. So it's the same then as it is now, and it always will be. That's just the way that it works. And I think, at the moment, especially for female wrestling, there's just some amazing talent out there. And I think, the big thing with it is that they know who they are. They all have the defined looks and characters, and they're something different. And that keeps it exciting, especially somewhere like Eve. A lot of us are there every month. A lot of us have wrestled each other quite a lot. So to have new people come in, new characters coming into the mix, and how they interact with the people that have been there for a long time, that's exciting. And I mean, just the Wrestle Carnival show the other month. The amount of girls that were on that show. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the picture of all of us together, but there's so many girls in that picture that are relatively they're not new, but they're just kind of they've just started to break out. The talent is just amazing. I think Alexis is so good. Lizzie, I just think is like a breath of fresh air. She's her character work.
Yeah.
That's what sets her apart from everyone else. And she's just, the thing that I really like about Lizzie is that she's one of these wrestlers that she has moments, and it's not just in the wrestling that she does. It's the reactions to stuff. It's the reactions to what other people do. It's the interactions with the referees and things like that. Like, that's different, and it's fresh, and it's entertaining. So I'd love to get to wrestle Lizzie at some point. I just think there's a massive crop of talent at the moment that's coming through. Ivy's another one. Look, everybody else, and she's somebody who's been working quite a while. So it's good to see people like that break out. And again, it's new matches. It's how that character interacts with this character. It's new stuff. So yeah. And I think there's again, the sky's the limit for a lot of the girls coming through now. I could sit here for ages and list off all the names. There's so many, so it's good.
No, absolutely, yeah. Well, that's the thing you sort of mentioned, is that's the thing that's great to see, because I've said it before. We've chatted to a few people on this show about this, but the fact that if you were to take, say, all the women in BritWres as its own division, it would match any women's division out there, whether it be WWE or AEW, or like NXT or what have you. It would match any of them, because the talent and the depth of talent is so strong. Yeah,
and the difference as well. Everyone's got different looks, different mood sets. So it's not like the same thing over and over and over, and that's what makes it interesting. It's quite diverse.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Going back to the list, there's only a couple more left. The next one is my favourite place in the world.
Home.
Nice, that's a good shout. Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, I like that. We've had like all over. I think like Scotty Rourke said it was his bed, and I was like, that's the most relatable thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. I do love to travel. That's one of my favourite things to do, but you can't beat home.
Well, that's moving on. That is the final one is my dream holiday destination.
Dream holiday destination. It's probably going to sound, I don't know, is it boring? It is boring. I really love like history and like old buildings, and I've always been really fascinated by the pyramids in Egypt, so I would love to go to Egypt.
No, that's not boring at all. That's super cool. Like,
but I think a lot of people that I say that to, they're like, have you, yeah, but it's dirty, it's not, I wouldn't care. Like I'm fascinated by it. So yeah, that would be my dream.
No, that's cool. No, I relate to that. I get that. That's cool. That's a good choice. Well, that's great. I mean, no, Jetta, thank you so much for coming on the show. For anyone watching, thank you for sticking around this long to watch. We've just got a couple of final questions. The first one is simply just about your hopes for this year. If we were having this conversation in 12 months' time, and I were to say, what would constitute a successful 2022 for you? What would that be?
Defend my title and win in March against Emersyn Jayne. She1 has always been a thorn in my side. So I want to, first of all, qualify for the She1 and win the She1. To me, like, I think winning the She1 is like up there with winning the title, just from the history that I have with it. And also I've been in every She1, so I feel like I need to keep that
going.
I want to qualify for She1 this year. Travel more, hopefully get to, wrestle outside of the UK. I'm excited to go back to OTT. That's going to be a lot of fun. There's wrestling more, kind of like, traveling around, getting to wrestle some of the people that we've discussed. But I think first and foremost, and over everything, enjoy it, have fun. That's the most important thing, because if you're not enjoying it, then it's not that there's no point in doing it, but to me, if you're not enjoying it, then it's not worth it. So yeah, that'd be the big one for me.
Well put. No,
and do a tag team with Charlie. That's what I'd like to be able to at least be doing that by at some point this year.
Nice. Charlie, a better tag team partner or opponent, you think?
Tag team partner. Yeah.
Fab, brilliant, amazing. Well, again, Jetta, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you for having
Brilliant.
me.
Well, we always end with giving our guest a little bit of promo time. So if anyone sees you at a show, at Eve, at Wrestle Carnival, anywhere else in the country, or sees you promoting a show on Twitter or anything and wants to come along and see what you're all about, why is Jetta going to steal the show?
Oh, God. Well, I like to interact with the crowd. I like to get the crowd involved with what I'm doing. I'll probably do something silly. Hopefully that will make you laugh. And I try to like wrestle or perform a little bit out of the box. And you can sing along to my entrance music.
Which is always fun.
Yeah.